Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good weekend. We are starting off here with a little bit of cuddle time with Coco and Majora. It is going to be their afternoon siesta, so figured I would just start the video with a little bit of some cute puppy cuddles. Right now, Majora is kind of begging for attention, and Coco and I are giving it to her. She actually loves to be a little bit submissive, and her little sister Coco Chanel, is actually the alpha of pretty much this whole pack. Whatever Coco wants, she gets. Of course, Majora does too, but Coco likes to lay down the law. So, if I get set up here really quickly and get myself a little bit less overexposed, I can start talking to you guys about this plant that I've been wanting to show you for a very long time, ever since I got my canna, that like mango canna that I showed you last time. This was something that I got with it, and you can now see it kind of poking into the frame. Wondering if I can angle this down just a little bit more. But, so this is the Calathea Medallion, and now I just scared the girls, the poor things. It's alright, honey girls, it was just me. Come here. Come here, honeys. Thank you. So, this Calathea, it's the roseopicta, is like the genus and species. It is part of the Marantaceae family, and you'll notice that it's got this wonderful, beautiful, very striking foliage. And they consider it a prayer plant because the leaves kind of move with the sun and the brightness of the day, kind of like, I don't know, someone kind of praising the sun, or just, I don't know, kind of meditating in prayer. So the species is mostly native to northwestern Brazil, and it appreciates a minimum temperature of about 65 degrees Fahrenheit in order to thrive, and it really, really appreciates a lot of humidity, along with bright indirect light. You can see that the underside of the leaves has this really striking kind of purple to it, which is a good indication that it's one of those like lower canopy kind of plants in its natural habitat, because this kind of dark coloration kind of helps trap the sunlight from passing through it, whatever little sunlight it gets. Like, let's say if it was like the rainforest or whatever kind of dense foresty area, it would almost kind of have to like fight for its light, which is why it has adapted to kind of like chasing the lights. You'll even kind of notice in the evening it almost like closes up as if it's like going to bed. So you'll notice throughout the day this plant is in like very many different positions. And I'll even tell you a quick like fun fact or story, I suppose, is I got a very, very small version of this, and you can tell this one is just, it's the most impressive specimen that I've ever seen of a Calathea, period, but especially a Calathea medallion. But I got one that was like a fifth of the size, that only had like 2 or 3 leaves, honestly, over in Austin, and I paid a good price for it, or really the same price for this one, which by the way was only $15.99 American dollars. But anyways, back to my story. Well, it relates because I bought that one, and I actually brought it in Austin to the office, and I had gifted it to one of my coworkers to have like as an office plant, because I had told y'all before that I've tried to kind of spruce up my office and make it, just give it some ambiance and make it seem like less dead and just like a little concrete office warehouse thing, which it was. And it was really like 6 feet from a door, I would say, a door that was kind of used often. So it would, the door would open and kind of give it bright and direct light, many times during the day, but it also had a very small window, let's say like the size of my face, honestly. And so over time, as it acclimated to the office, it would like pretty much just like lean towards the window. Like if the window was over here, you would see the leaves kind of like lean this way, kind of trying to almost like reach toward the light and catch as much light as it could. And it continued to grow. Like I said, it's used to being a low light plant, or just like not a full sun, not a direct light plant. So it'll kind of try to catch and face like whatever sunlight it can get. Currently in this house, I have it in my Florida room, which we actually keep all of the blinds closed at the moment, just because we don't have a bunch of outer shade yet to kind of help keep the room cool and the electricity bill low and such. So yeah, it can be a bit finicky, or prairie plants in general can sometimes be tricky for people because they like consistent watering and almost like a moist-ish soil with drying out a little bit, but it does not really like wet feet. And once it starts to like get signs of browning, which is usually what people's issue is like underwatering, you can't get those brown marks off and out, you know what I mean? You would have to like cut the leaf. So to find such an optimal condition that this one clearly has been in, as you can see, it's just almost overabundance of leaves. It's a real sweet spot to try to figure out. So once you do it, props to you once you figure it out. But there's no shame if you haven't found it yet, or if your house maybe isn't able to do it, because it does kind of appreciate much more humidity, which is now common in my current home in Florida, but was a lot harder to achieve over there in Texas. Another quick anecdote is that I did have another species of the Marantaceae family, and it was actually a Maranta, and it was just so crazy. Like it was like one of the wide-spreading ones, which most of them kind of are, and it had just gotten so big, and it was fighting mealybugs, which is another common thing with prairie plants. Is they have a lot of just leaf surface area, and the fact that a lot of people kind of almost stress it out with watering and then letting it dry out, and it gets kind of stressed, which that kind of stress is almost like a magnet for pests, especially if you have it in your home. That can really attract mealybugs, which can be really hard to get rid of once you have them. So my way of solving that issue was, number one, isolating the plant, as is common practice when you have pests in a plant. You don't want those pests to start transferring over to your other plants. So I took it outside in Texas, which pretty much every gardener and gardening center will tell you not to do, especially in Texas, because it's so dry and it's so bright, and it's hard to get a good spot where it's not getting direct sunlight if you put it outside. But what I did is I put it beneath a very established crepe myrtle tree that I wound up getting, putting one of my vintage plant shelves under. And so it was under the tree, and then the shelf had a bunch of plants in it, and I put it all the way below that shelf, like below all the plants that were below the crepe myrtle. So you can see I almost kind of tried to imitate its natural habitat, where it was literally on the floor. So I was trying to imitate that it would be like on a forest floor. And it was, honestly, it was thriving. I actually got it to flower. If I can find a picture of it flowering, which it wasn't the best photo because those flowers are so small and dainty, which is honestly so pretty, but it's not easy to photograph, or at least for me, with someone who only has an iPhone and very amateur photography skills. It was hard to get the iPhone to autofocus on the flowers, I suppose, but they're really pretty flowers, and I was freaking out, and I told everybody that I knew that cared about flowers, because that's such a rare occurrence to happen in the home. And the fact that I was able to accomplish it outside in Texas, where people were like, oh no, putting it outside is like a death wish. I'm like, well, watch me, I'm gonna do it. So I did it. And like I said, it was thriving, pushing out new growth. It was so dense and like bushy and covered in like thick just dense foliage just like this one. I don't know, I was just really proud of that, so I wanted to tell you. And if I could just scoot up a little bit to try to illustrate something towards y'all. So you can kind of see that this one has little specks. It almost looks a little bit dusty. It's like watermark looking stuff. You could see it especially on orientation. This leaf over here, it looks like it's almost like dusty, just this little white deposit on top of the leaves. So that's another, I've been kind of telling y'all in some of my previous videos that a lot of plants kind of preferred filtered water, and this is definitely one of them. This is one that if your tap water is really harsh and full of minerals and such, it's going to show up in the leaves. Or if, I believe this garden center that I bought it from was watering it from overhead water, that's another way that your minerals and such are going to deposit on the leaves, is if you overhead water it. So what I like to do with this when I water it is either water directly on the soil, like I have a very cute miniature watering can with a long spout that I can get, you know, I'll lift up one of these leaves, or, you know, find a spot that has a little bit less leafage to it, some less foliage, and just put the spout right in here to water the soil, and I'll have like a little saucer underneath to catch it, and try to also bottom water it from there via the capillary action. I did kind of, you know, you can wipe off that harsh mineral water look. It is almost like a dust, so I can show you like on one of these leaves that is now dusty again. You know, dusting your plants is you know, it's like a constant chore, which I find, you know, it's a way to kind of take inventory of your plants and see if they're doing well. But you can see this one is a lot more clean, and just, you know, shiny, and being able to see the colors distinctly as compared to orientation again. Where are you? This one. As opposed to this one and this one over here that, oh my gosh, this one over here that you can really see the water deposits. And I wanted to keep that just so I can show you guys what I mean when there's the harsh water stuff that will make a mark. And Majora's coming back to bed over here. My little baby, you can see her barely in the corner, but let me tuck her back in. She likes her blankie. She's one of the pups, one of those types of dogs that loves to be covered under a blanket. She will kind of tuck herself in, but she prefers if I'm around to tuck her in for her. So that is now a swaddled dog. But anyways, back to some more kind of tidbits and facts of the Calathea medallion, or Calathea roseopicta. Oh, my baby. Yeah, this one that I bought was only $15.99, and it's kind of crazy because I've seen them go online, like pretty much like starting at $20. I even have seen some for sale that were up to $70, and the only reason I can rationalize that it's being sold for so much is that it has to be in some like homemade ceramic pot that they're trying to sell it with as well, or something like that. Like there's no reason you should be spending that much money on a Calathea medallion unless it's going to be like an even more magnificent specimen. Like if I can get, like I get it, I'm in Florida, it is a bit more optimal growing conditions, but if I can get this for $15.99, there is no way that you should be spending $70 or, you know, upwards of $30, $40 on something that's only going to have 3 or 4 leaves. Though I have to confess, when I went back to go see, you know, a week later, if the nursery that I got it from had maybe gotten more of these, they were all, none of them that were left or available were at all this magnificent. So I really lucked out, I think, in getting it for such a good price. But yeah, this would be, you know, if you have somewhat more experienced gardening friends, a Calathea medallion like this, especially if you were to find it at that good of a price, I would definitely get it for them, just because I don't know, prairie plants are so wonderful, and I think it's really cool to see them kind of dance around throughout the day and kind of chase the sun. But yeah, as for like the soil and repotting, they do like a well-draining soil, kind of like I mentioned before. They don't like soggy feet. Hi, my love. And if you're gonna repot it, don't overdo it on the repotting. You know, in general, when you repot plants, you really just want to go the next size up. But Calatheas, honestly, kind of really appreciate being root bound. So if I could show you, I actually got this very, very beautiful pot, which actually matches the backdrop. This is clearly, you can tell that I like blue and black and just kind of darker scale colors. But I also really like pastels. But anyways, just to show you relatively how big these pots are, I'm going to repot this into this. So it's really not that much bigger. And I hope that it doesn't go into much shock. You know, hopefully it shouldn't. As for propagating, I did, at least in Texas, propagate that Maranta via water propagation. I had just cut off like a little stem and put it into a vase just to try my luck, and lo and behold, it took quite a while, but it did start to root, and I did give it to a coworker who had success in, you know, continuing on its life and is surviving and hopefully thriving with them. And usually Calatheas and Marantas or anything in the Marantaceae family really only appreciates a very mild fertilization during the growing season, and then also just most people usually propagate by division a lot of Calatheas and Marantas, but that always makes me really nervous. But I may try it with this one because this one doesn't seem to have kind of like the stems and nodes that the Maranta that I propagated before had. So if I do propagate it, I will let y'all know how it goes. But yeah, I just wanted to show y'all this crazy, wonderful Calathea that I've been dying to show y'all, honestly, ever since really I moved here. And the Calathea and that canna were part of like the first group of plants that I just couldn't help but buy. Even though I was still in the rental, I mean, look at this. And when I went to finally, like when we finally closed on this house and we went to go pick up things from the rental, I like prioritized carrying this like in my lap because I didn't want it to fall over, and I was just obsessed with it. And even my friends, family friends that drove me to go pick it up were just like, oh yeah, I can see why that's such an impressive specimen. I mean, clearly. And everyone that's stopped by the house is just like, wow, what plant is that? So it's the Calathea Medallion. It's a wonderful plant. And yeah, thank y'all for joining me. Thank you for, you know, appreciating my girls or letting me bring them onto the channel and show some love. I'll give you all, oh, a little yawn. I'll give y'all one little last goodbye with my little Majora deer. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye.